What's up, guys? Welcome to Nutmegged, the podcast where a Yank and a Brit talk about the beautiful game from across the pond. I'm, of course, Fails, representing the UK out here in Dubai at the moment. And, of course, we've got Andrew holding down the fort in the USA. How are you, bud?
Life is good, my dude. Unfortunately, though, not as warm as where you are. I'm looking out my window right now. It is snowing.
I kind of wish I had a bit of snow. It's Christmassy. It feels like it fits the environment, but no, we let me check the temperature, actually. I think we're currently at the moment, this evening, it's about 21 degrees, and it's just evening time at the moment. So,
wow.
Not too bad.
That is a different world.
Different world, indeed. We have got a great episode lined up. Obviously, we've got lots of great topics, lots of hot topics we want to discuss, and a few things around the world of football as well. So, I want to get straight into how we like to do this now. Of course, is the Nutmeg of the Week. Andrew, what you got for us?
I have a good Nutmeg of the Week for you, and it is related to branding. I have 2 marketing degrees, so anytime I get to talk branding, I'm a happy boy. So let's dive right into this with a massive brand who are probably having a fire inside their headquarters right now from a management perspective, because it is Puma. They are just releasing their Future 8 cleats. Now, I have actually had one of their earlier models, and it's quite nice. You are able to take the laces on the version that I have and kind of change where the lace holes are to make it tighter or looser if you want to. So I'm a big fan. I like those Puma cleats. They're super light. So they're just getting ready to release these new Future 8s. They have a slew of different players that they try to have represent their brand, like wearing Puma cleats specifically and then highlighting those players. Cucurella is one of those players, as you know, kind of a Chelsea left back, wing back type of player. The big poofy hair boy plays for Spain as well. He is one of their poster childs, and he recently was given these cleats to wear during the Tottenham match. If you've not seen the Tottenham match against Chelsea, quite a fun one to watch, but also because of this added drama. So Cucurella, like I had mentioned, is a defender, was wearing these new cleats, the Future 8s, for the first time. Puma was highlighting that. And there was an issue. Issue number 1, Cucurella defending, slips, falls down, leads to goal number 1. Same situation happens again. Defending again, slips blatantly on the pitch, just falls down. Clearly an issue with cleats and not being able to get his footing on the pitch. That second fall led to another goal. So 2 goals because Cucurella slips in his cleats. He gets angry. He goes over to the sideline after that second goal, takes the cleats off, throws them on the sideline, and changes mid-game. Not a good look already for Puma. Slipping in general, not good when you're trying to highlight new cleats for the first time, especially when that player who is supposed to be a brand representative for you takes them off mid-game and throws them to change out the cleats. Not only that, though, there are still more issues here. In the locker room after the match, Cucurella takes his cleats, puts them in the bin, the trash can, takes a picture of them, posts them on social media, and says, "Sorry, Blues." So he does have a actual contract with Puma to be a brand representative. So he did eventually take down that social media post because he probably got an angry call from his agent saying, yeah, we have a multi-million-dollar contract with Puma to have cleats, so you may want to take that down. But yeah, Nutmeg of the Week from Puma. Not having good enough cleats for Cucurella, falling down, leading to goals. Not ideal for the boy.
Yeah, and when I saw that photo of the bin with the shoes in, I was like, I am thinking, and just in my heart right now, I'm thinking the people that are at Puma are going to be going crazy. Just not even the fact that you can see him walk to the touchline, and he's like nodding his head, like, "What am I wearing?" And then it's just, I mean, what would have topped it off would be if he wore other boots and got an assist or a goal. Then it'd just be like, yeah, it was definitely the boots. It was definitely something to do with that. Just crazy. But it is a good one. We were just talking about it before we got into this. It is amazingly funny. Just as big as Nutmeg you're going to get. So, yeah, love that. So, mine is around the current Man City manager, Pep Guardiola. So, we know Pep's having a bit of a tough time at the moment. Maybe he's brought some back. I mean, he was got a victory recently, and it's not going too well overall. And that seems to be affecting not just his calm sort of, I don't necessarily calm demeanor, but he has quite it's always everything seems to be okay for Pep Guardiola. There's just a vibe of like, I got this, it's fine. I'm Pep Guardiola, best manager in the world right now. I've got this. So when he starts getting rattled, it is gold. So the first element of this nutmegged element is, so there is a obviously performance of people booing. It's the game of they've just lost. Man City have just lost, which is multiple games they've lost recently. And he can feel the fans booing, turning against him, and he puts six of his fingers in the air to kind of signify in terms of, I've got 6 trophies. I think it was against Liverpool, like talking about 6 trophies. There's obviously getting under his skin a bit, and you can feel that energy is kind of going through, and you're thinking, okay, cool, I see what he's trying to do here, right? Now, someone also raised his fingers in, that kind of similar way, and it kind of shows that potentially our manager's getting rattled. Is there an aspect of that? And Mourinho came out and thought that was a bit of a side shot to him. So Pep Guardiola said, and this is a quote from him saying, Pep Guardiola said something about me yesterday. He's saying he won 6 trophies, which was the 6 fingers, and I won 3, but fairly and cleanly. I don't want to win by dealing with 150 lawsuits. So we got Jose Mourinho there trying to throw in a bit of shade there. But you're thinking, okay, that's not, it's just how it is at the beginning, the top of it, right? But then a video comes out, you guys might have seen it, of Pep Guardiola. He's probably in the street, he's got his bag, he's probably coming back from a game. And I think you can feel the fans trying to, I say a fan, it's probably like not necessarily a Man City fan, but he's obviously enjoying the heat that Pep Guardiola is taking. And he's sort of ribbing him a bit on the street. And then you can see something snap Pep Guardiola, and he's turning around and he's getting in the face. There's a bit of an altercation. His security holding him back, and he's doing that whole thing of like, don't hold me back. Don't hold me back. I want to get him situation. So it's really getting to that point now, and it's kind of burst a little bit here. And the 130 lawsuits going up to the 150. I've heard at the moment is 130, or there's 115 going to 130. That's what I've heard. So not good times, but obviously Pep needs to keep his cool. So a manager of that level should really not be fighting with random fans. Let's just clarify that. Or even trying to. So that is my nutmegged of the week.
The first thing for me is Jose. That is just so on brand for him to have some random story happening somewhere else, and then he makes it about himself. That's just the exact epitome of what Jose Mourinho is. But I am actually here for more of this drama. I like when managers get a little bit more passionate and get a little more edgy with fans. One, because it just adds to the drama, the storyline. It makes it more fun and exciting just for general viewers like us. But then also, fans have no idea how difficult it is to be a manager of a Premier League club. I am a coach for a local college here in Ohio. And just being able to manage that is difficult, from the player personalities, from all the different functional things you have to do, from running practice to making sure you have games scheduled. Like, that's a lot. And then to do it at the highest level, just having all the media as well and all that stuff, fans have no idea how difficult it is. And especially the legacy and what Pep Guardiola has actually done as a manager is insane and insanely difficult. So, yeah, I like seeing him getting fans' face for that. I'm here for it.
As you spoke about, as a manager, though, have you ever had a point where you've kind of not lost your cool on the sidelines, where you felt like, oh, this is really annoying me now. I'm about to go off here.
Actually, twice this last season, yes. So one was because of a refereeing incident. The referee called my player offside when he was clearly onside, and I was livid. We actually play like in the middle of a cornfield, and I had to walk into the cornfield so I didn't get kicked out of the match, and everyone thought that was very funny. But I actually have footage of the game, and at the end, the referee said, "Hey, you need to calm down." And I said, "Well, I will be calm when you make the right call." And I said, "I have the actual footage, and I can give that to you if you would like." And he said, "I'd like to see it." So I've never had him ref another game yet because I have the footage. I'm ready to show him. He was onside, so that's good. But the second piece, I've actually got into it with another coach on the sideline. Nothing crazy, but one of the coaches for a team that I was playing this season, she started yelling at one of my players who was just trying to ask a question to the referee because he wasn't sure what the call was and he wanted it explained. And while the explanation was happening, she was yelling at my player saying, hey, let's get the game going. Like, what are you even having a conversation about? Which, good job to the referee, because that's what you should be doing. You should be explaining if there's a miscommunication or a not understanding for a player. So then I started talking to the coach and be like, hey, yo, he's getting an explanation. Like, that's totally normal. The ref is doing exactly what he should be doing. And then she started yelling at me, and then we were just going back and forth a little bit, which I was so confused. And the AR on my side, he was saying, wow, I don't know what she's getting crazy about, but yeah, it seems like you guys have a nice heated rivalry going on. And I actually have communicated with her before, and I like her a lot. Like, we now have this little rivalry that's going on, but it's fun. But those were kind of the two pieces where I got a little bit crazy on the sideline.
I like that. It's always like, 'cause we're all human, right? We're all gonna have something that's gonna, grind our gears, or make something that's gonna, make us feel a certain way. So, yeah, love that. You spoke earlier about confusion. I'm being confused. We as Man United are currently confused at the moment with the current state of play
all the time
of the back room space at the moment. So we're just trying to figure that out. So, Andrew, do you want to break down what has happened on what is going on, man? Because I'm confused.
Yeah, I wish I could actually give you more clarity than I will be able to provide, but I am not able to do that. Maybe if Ratcliffe brings me in and makes me the CEO of the club, I can start providing some actual clarity.
We can get him on the show. We'll get him on the show.
Jim Ratcliffe, if you do listen to our show, I'm sure you're a dedicated listener, one of our three, then you should absolutely hop on, and we'd love to get some more clarity on the state of Manchester United. But let me paint the picture of one piece that has just happened. So there has been a sacking, and I'm not talking about a managerial sacking. This is actually Dan Ashworth, who has been sacked, who has been one of like the people that manages some of the football operations for the club, was a fairly high profile individual that was brought in from Newcastle. And they actually paid money. Manchester United paid money to Newcastle to get him, just like a transfer. So they paid around £2 to £3 million so that Newcastle would let him leave so that he could be a part of this new Manchester United under Jim Ratcliffe. He has been at Manchester United for just around 5 months. So unfortunately, this is now becoming a trend where they get rid of people who have contracts that were just recently signed. So Ashworth is now one of them after just getting a contract 5 months ago. We know Ten Hag had just recently gotten a new contract before he was sacked as well. So not the best look from a financial standpoint, as well as just a actual management of a club standpoint. So the reason supposedly that this had happened is because Ratcliffe was unhappy with the hiring process for the new manager. So we know that we now have a new manager getting rid of Ten Hag, and once Ten Hag was removed, the process for bringing in a new manager apparently is what caused some friction between Ratcliffe and Ashworth. So Ashworth was looking at more managers that had Premier League experience. One of those was Eddie Howe. I don't think he would have been a bad option, had some good Premier League experience of like building a club up when he has done that experience at Newcastle. So not a bad idea. I mean, why not look at someone that has experience, especially when you're kind of in a rough time frame or rough place as Manchester United is right now. So that started the riff. Apparently there were some other decision-making things that Ratcliffe was not happy with. When it comes to the manager specifically, Ratcliffe was looking for something new. So a newer type of manager that maybe doesn't fit the traditional mold of what Manchester United has done in the past and not what Ashworth was looking into. That was the breaking point, apparently, and he was starting to be frozen out of decisions and was finally just relieved of his duties. The other piece of this is actually the women's team, which is now not looking in too great of a shape simply because Ashworth had said on multiple occasions he was very committed to growing the women's side of the game with the Manchester United club. Ratcliffe has come out and said that the men's team is and will be the priority. So not necessarily saying that he's not going to put any focus on the women's team, but he is making it clear that the men's team is what he is trying to work on. So not the best look. And Ashworth now is being coveted by multiple teams. Of course, I still think he's awesome, and he's a great football director type of person, knows what he's doing, helped with the Brighton rebuild, and did some good things with Newcastle. Also with some of the younger players in England. He was working with the FA and helped develop some of those programs, which is proven to be quite successful because now some of those players are playing for the England senior team. But that is disappointing from Manchester United perspective because, again, I don't think he was given the right amount of time, just like I have explained with managers at Manchester United and other clubs as well. And the last piece of this story, one source came out and said that Ashworth had thought that there are just too many cooks trying to make decisions for the club, which kind of from an outsider's perspective looks like that's the case, but that's not surprising because from my perspective, that has been the case for quite some time. And as I have stated on this podcast, nearly every time we talk about Manchester United, they're still no idea what they're doing. They have no structure. The club, from the front office to the back office, is just in shambles, and it is showing on the pitch as well because there's no game plan, there's no foundation, there's really no structure. Huzzah.
See, when I saw this, I was genuinely shocked, and the first thing I saw was the meme, the Homer Simpson meme, where he walks in, puts his hat on the thing, puts his hat back on, and walks back out the room again. It's like that, and I just thought, I couldn't have put it any better. I remember hearing all sorts about this Ashworth. Oh, he's integrity. We've taken him from Newcastle. He's gone and we'll pay millions for him. And I genuinely thought he was going to be the revolutionary part of this Man United squad. So the fact that after 5 months, you see an article and it's literally just like 3 sentences. He is no longer with us. He is, by mutual consent has left. And I'm like, there's obviously something here. And as you spoke about all this stuff about the manager, I'm hearing that he was really keen on like Southgate in particular and was very like, we need him. He's going to be the one that grows the squad. He's going to be the one that leads this new sort of revolution of Manchester United. And I feel like there was this whole idea that he was probably didn't work out. And people have that at jobs all the time. It happens in Dubai. I'm sure it happens in the US and the UK and all over the world, for example. People come in that few months, you're getting your feet into the table and it's just not working for you. You've got the hierarchy around you. You're quite a senior position. You just millions of pounds. It just, from Ratcliffe's perspective, just made sense just to cut it and just be like, look, do you know what? It hasn't worked. And let's just keep going on. But I just don't like the fact that he almost was part, I think maybe Ratcliffe also potentially saw him as part of that Ten Hag, like, structure and felt like there was an element of he perhaps was the one that wanted to keep Ten Hag in. He's the one that gave him a new contract and potentially gave him a couple more months, which therefore also cost the club. And maybe there's all this element behind it as well. We know at the moment Ratcliffe and money and what he's looking to do and really keep it nice and simple and not like, not spend lots of money and to the point where I think, again, this is an article I read earlier, but about how they've cancelled the Christmas party because of redundancies. So that's number one. They've also cut down, it was like a Christmas bonus. At the time, it was like £100, just like a cash, essentially, to the people. And now around the club, now it's basically gone to like £40 and it's like an M&S voucher. So I don't know whether that's true or not, but that just sounds like this whole idea of Ratcliffe trying to cut money, make it a really lean machine. But is there going to be additional casualties? That is the question. You think you've spoken about, you think it was a good decision to do it now and in the point we're in here now? Or was there a better time, do you think? Or
I think Ratcliffe is an idiot for hiring Ashworth in the first place if he didn't think that he was the one to grow the club. 5 months is not enough time to really create any type of progress or really to even implement your strategy of what you're trying to do. Like, you're just setting the foundation up in those first 5 months. So my issue with Ratcliffe is not that he's trying to run the club more lean, which I think is smart and needs to be what is happening now just because of the poor ownership of the Glazers previously. But the problem for me is if you want to run the club lean, then why are you bringing in someone that doesn't agree with your vision in terms of who should be hired, in terms of the football operations? I just don't get that point. Also, when you are taking over a club, if you have a vision, then you want to implement that vision. If you do, there are some owners who just want to buy the club and let the individuals run it. Awesome. That was more so the vibe of what Ratcliffe had said at the beginning. He just wants to hire people and not really be a part of the day-to-day decision-making, which seems to not be the case now. But then if you are coming in and you have that mindset, that's fine. Run the club however you want, but then don't start going back on your decisions that you make in the very beginning of trying to hire a high-profile director of football because he's going to do his job and actually try to perform and get the team performing well from the front office to the actual on-field product. So I'm just confused by Ratcliffe because he's saying something, but then is going back on his thing that he said in the very beginning. But now he's just trying to say, oh, now we just want it to be lean and try to focus on some specific decision key making things. So I'm just confused. I was already confused before this because of what Manchester United has been doing. And I have said previously, I think that it's going in the right direction. Ratcliffe is trying to create some structure, but now he just pulled out one of the foundational pieces. And now all of the progress that has been made for me, in my eyes, is now just crumbled back to the beginning. So now we're starting fresh all over again. So that is where a lot of my confusion lies. He tries to tell us one thing, slowly makes progress on the way that we thought he wanted to go, but then just now completely changes again and has his hands in everything. So I have no idea what's happening. I'm still just as confused and more confused now than I was before because I thought Ashworth was good. I'm going to drop you something real crazy. I've been debating on not being a Manchester United fan anymore, and it's not because of the on-field product. I'm a Browns fan. So being a Cleveland Browns fan is kind of a punishment. If you are a Cleveland Browns fan, you'll understand what that means because we never win anything. We're always a terrible team. Sometimes we have flashes of like being an average team. It's quite nice. And having that fandom almost makes me feel like I want to be an Everton fan. So that is something I'm struggling with right now because Manchester United, I've had a long-running relationship with them ever since I had a ball cap from them when I was like a 10-year-old because that was really the only soccer team that you could find in Ohio that was in the Premier League. But it's just disappointing to see so much of the same thing continuing to happen in the front/back office management-wise, which was happening with the Glazers and now kind of again happening with Radcliffe. It's just disappointing to see, and it's feel like I'm just hitting my head on the table consistently. So the comparison with the Browns, at least there's not a lot of back office drama. It's more like player drama, which can be managed by a coach and can be managed differently because at least there's a structure and some type of organization. I feel like there's absolutely nothing. And while the on-field product for Manchester United is sucky, it's also sucky in the front/back office too. So there's like no real hope for the future. That's how I feel as a Manchester United fan.
Wow. You're debating Everton versus Manchester United in terms of you guys heard it here first. I'm sure people would have a lot to say about that. But for me, and I'm with you, like we are going through a tough patch at the moment. And I think most clubs will go through that. As we know, football is a bit of a cycle, right? There are teams that will come and go. For example, look at Nottingham Forest, the European Cup champions, and now they'll get into that space now. It's getting to that point now. So I see what you're saying, and I think if you're looking at it from like a purely like, is this club in disarray? Like, do you support a team or a club that is just has no direction and it's not enjoyable to watch and it's not enjoyable to like read about in the news? It's not good news. Right, and it can be quite exhausting, and I appreciate that. But I'm of the opinion, like the club you support, the Premier League club, or whatever football team you support, it picks you. You don't pick it. That's what I'm always of the opinion of. When that cap was placed on your head, it meant you're going through and supporting Manchester United during the rain or shine. That's just part and parcel of it. That's what I see it. And there were times where at school I was called Glory Hunter. School mid-2000s, Man United winning it all, right? I haven't seen any more of that glory I've been hunting, apparently. There's none of that at the moment. And it's when I see my club doing well and I see us doing badly, I think to myself, we will get there. I just feel like in my heart that it's a bad phase, and it's a bad phase of football, but we will get there. So for me, my support will never go away, even in the bad times, because I honestly, genuinely believe you can't. If you cheer, you can cheer when you're winning, right? But you also have got to keep cheering when you're losing, because that's just part and parcel of being a football fan. That's just how it is. But I see what you're saying. You're kind of used to that, but yeah.
I don't know if it's necessarily the on-field product. Like, I know that the Browns suck as an actual team playing the sport of American football. That's okay for me. So like when Manchester United is not playing well on the pitch, like it sucks for sure, but like that doesn't necessarily influence my fandom. I don't know if it's because I'm like an entrepreneur and I know how businesses should be run. But the part that just makes me hit my head on the table repeatedly is that the same stupid things happen in the front office. That's where all these problems are. And that should be the easier thing to manage. Managing a soccer team with a bunch of different personalities and trying to find a manager that can implement a good style that manages those players appropriately, that is tough, super difficult. Hiring the right people to manage the operations of the business side should be much less difficult. But for some reason, Manchester United has struggled with that ever since Alex Ferguson left. I just don't understand why that part is made so difficult. And you bring in someone like Ashworth, who has the knowledge and previous experience, and you don't even give him time to set up a strategy and a foundation to implement something. That's where I start questioning my fandom. It's not necessarily the players or the product on the field or even the managerial style. Like, I'm okay supporting a sucky team. I've done it for a while. I'm a whole City fan as well. So that's been a roller coaster of a ride. But I feel like I have more of an attachment to those types of teams because that's where I'm from. Like Hull City, that's where like my ancestors are from in England, which is super cool. Like I live in Ohio. I'm in the Cleveland region. So that's why I'm a Cleveland Browns fan. The Columbus Crew, they have been good. They've been sucky for a while too. Like I've lived in Columbus. So I have that more attachment. It is kind of cool that I agree the team in the Premier League kind of picks you in some weird way, but I just don't have that emotional attachment fully. Just maybe that's a personal thing. But then when it comes to not having an emotional attachment, then I need to make sure that the business side is run correctly and it's not stupid or it's not run by like a Middle East oil corporation or something of that nature. But when the business side continues to be stupid and do the same things over and over that don't work, that's when I just start questioning things.
That's fair. That makes total sense. I think from business side, you're right, we're a bit of a shambles. And if you're looking at it from a purely objective, like putting your heart to one side, the way the club is run is very poor at the moment. And I think it's clutching at straws and trying to bring people together, and that's affecting stuff. And I totally understand. And that's fair. You're right. Maybe I am a lot more, I'm a much more emotional Man United fan when it comes to it. I think there are times where, when we won the Champions League, for example, there were tears. Like I grew up, that's just how it was. And it's one of those ones where a lot of people ask, and I always joke about this as well. I mean, this is getting quite deep in the podcast, can't lie. Where people always say, like, why just want Manchester United? Right? And I always joke, I was born in like a Salford hospital or somewhere in Manchester, etc. But truth of the matter is, I grew up, it's what made Manchester United made me fall in love with football. It's as simple as that. Like that is the club that I watched and I followed and fell in love with, and I fell in love with the players. I fell in love with the way we played. Sir Alex Ferguson is, for me, the GOAT. Cristiano Ronaldo, as a kid in the mid-2000s, and that's just how it was. So I think it's almost my affinity is linked with the fact that if I don't love Manchester United, I don't love football. I think that's probably what it is. And I will never do the both. I will never not like no football or love Manchester United. This is just the same. They come and part and parcel of it. So, yeah, it's getting deep, but that's just about my thought.
That's cool. I wish I felt that way and had that type of connection. So, for example, I do with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm not a huge NBA fan myself, but I love Ohio sports and I support all Ohio sports. So when I watched the Cleveland Cavaliers when LeBron returned and they won the championship,
wow.
Yeah, like I had some tears. Like it was an emotional experience because like seeing 100%. The strife and that team fighting back from a 3-1 deficit to actually win, it was insane and such an awesome ride because I feel like I was actually a part of that experience. But now I almost feel like it's just run so poorly. Manchester United as a club, from a business perspective, that almost turns me off for some reason because that should be the thing that's making me fall in love with Manchester United. When you're in an era of struggle as a sports team, the job of the organization is to make sure the fans are still a part of the experience. What Manchester United are doing right now are almost making me feel as a fan that I'm farther removed and almost that I can do a better job of running some of the business side than they are, which is crazy to me. And I feel like that element is what is shoving me away as a fan and just keeping me less interested in the storyline of what should be the focus, which is the team itself. And it's okay to suck as a team, But when you start to suck as an organization and don't actually get your fans involved and are not running things appropriately, which will make your team suck even more, that's where I just feel bad about it.
Interesting. We could spend hours more on this. I think it's a really interesting topic. I'm sure we will definitely revisit at some point, because fans or not fans, the Man United and will always be something that we will discuss and chat further about. Moving on from obviously the back room and the back office, with people having sort of sackings in the back room, to having sort of sackings on the pitch. Not necessarily a football player either. So, and I'm sure some of the listeners may have heard this already, but I just wanted to get your take on it and give you a bit of background and, see what the situation is. So, this is, of course, talking about David Coote, which is, of course, a referee in the Premier League, a very well-established referee in the Premier League, who has, we see him as like all referees, really, an authority figure in this space, right? So when it comes to a point where a certain video comes out, so I'll take it back, right? So a certain video comes out of David Coote. It's like a selfie video. I would argue, I'm not 100% sure, is it his friend? Because, if you look at the content of it, I'm not really sure whether that really works or not. But a video essentially is leaked of David Coote, where you have I would say, not sure, supposed friend, ask him, what do you think of the Liverpool game earlier when you were the fourth official? Right now, of course, having a banter. You could argue that David Coote is looking a little bit intoxicated, which we'll get onto later on. And so he says Liverpool were ish into that level, right? So you can already see that is not the way a referee should be speaking about any club, right? And then he asks him what he think about Jurgen Klopp at the time, which he then calls him, a few choice words, and then he goes in a bit more in depth, and he goes, aside from having a right pop at me when I refereed them against Burnley during lockdown. So he's obviously harboring something, which I think as refs, as a professional and authority figure, should not be happening. He accused me of lying and then just had a right effing pop at me. So there's obviously animosity there. And he goes, I have no interest in speaking to someone who's arrogant. So there's this feeling here immediately that David Coote is not a fan of Liverpool and also specifically Jurgen Klopp. And then weirdly enough in this video, which gets a little bit, I say this is funny, it kind of dispelled some kind of memes later on, but he goes, I do my best not to speak to him, referring to Jurgen Klopp. Then he says, Milner's all right. I get on with him. So, which I remember us reading that and see a couple of the memes and being like, who has a bad word to say about James Milner? Let's be real. Like, stalwart of the Premier League, utility man, he's playing out of his years, so fair play. And then and this story just gets funny, right? So then shows a mobile phone screen with an image of himself and Klopp on it. In image, he's wearing a face mask and talks mockingly about coronavirus social distancing rules. So he goes, my God, German this, German that, Liverpool are full of blah, blah, blah. He says, we hate Scousers. This is the depth now. This is a lot. This has gone beyond professionalism here for a referee of this level. And you got a second shorter video, which goes, just to be clear, and this is where it gets awkward, just to be clear, that last video can't go anywhere seriously. And then the second man, which makes me laugh more, he's a Premier League referee. Let's not ruin his career, is the line that his supposed friend, let's say friend loosely, said. So that's the first video. The second video that comes out a few days later is by The Sun, which makes things even worse. It's apparently David Coote sniffing some white powder. We're not sure what it is, but you'll take from that what you will. All right? And so off the back of that, there was obviously the PGMOL. We're obviously saying they're very aware. They're doing an in-depth, investigation into this and taking this very seriously, right? And then more and more allegations came out, less video related, and then they launched their own investigation into when The Sun released what he said were messages exchanged between Coote and a friend, in which a referee discussed giving a yellow card to a player before he even officiated the game. So that in itself, that if you're looking at the disrepute of the game and the corruption within the game, this is really out in that. And this is it's very difficult to read that sort of stuff when you're watching a Premier League game, which is meant to be the best league in the world with the best players and the best referees. So there's that. Then there's also further messages which I sent before and after the Championship game between Leeds United and West Brom, in which Coote booked Leeds defender Alioski. But apparently he told his friend, "What a day yesterday. I hope you backed as we discussed." Which again is not good. And then Coote has described the allegations as false and defamatory, blah, blah, blah. And then there's also more and more different material, potentially some flashpoints between the Man City game, in which there was apparently a handball during Manchester 1-0 win over Everton at Goodison Park. So City were ahead through a Phil Foden goal in that game, inside his own penalty box area before he completed clearance. So there's up and down. People are saying that was quite crucial in terms of the large scale of Man City essentially winning the league, and saying that goal, that handball should have been given. And it was, and potentially that's maybe something swaying potentially against Liverpool fans again. So up and down, a lot of different elements of this. But ultimately, he has recently been found guilty in terms of they found serious breach of the terms of his contract, in terms of breaching his contract, and he has been officially sacked by the Professional Games Match Officials, so it's the PGMOL. So no more David Coote in the Premier League, and will no longer be refereeing matches in the Premier League. Andrew, thoughts?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of thoughts on this because it's pretty straightforward. You are making some poor professional decisions that will impact the job that you have. So you're fairly responsible for the decisions that you make, and you know the risks you're taking by saying some of these things, by doing some of those actions. So when you do get fired from that job, which you have a contract with, so you kind of know the standards of what you need to uphold, you get fired, that's probably the right result. With that being said, the Premier League did push out a statement, which I think is cool of them to do. So I'll read the statement. It's super short. Following the conclusion of a thorough investigation into David Coote's conduct, his employment with PGMOL has been terminated today with immediate effect. David Coote's actions were found to be in serious breach of the provisions of his employment contract, which that makes sense because every person that has a job will have some type of employment contract so that you know what you're getting paid, what the ethical things are that you need to follow, different things within inside the organization. So that makes sense. Continuing, with his position deemed untenable. Supporting David Coote continues to be important to us, and we remain committed to his welfare. David Coote has the right to appeal the decision to terminate his employment. But the sentence I just read before that last one is what actually is cool to me. So they said that they're continuing to focus and committed to his welfare. Because obviously, losing your high-profile job like this sucks, so that's stressful. But then some of the other things that he was doing maybe questions his mental health or the state of where he is right now. So it's cool that the Premier League is actually making sure that he's okay as an individual too, because it's easy to just like wipe your hands of a situation and be done with it. So the one cool aspect to this is that hopefully the resources around him will allow him to get the help that he needs and hopefully fix some of the stuff that he's struggling with.
Yeah, you're right. I do love that. And that is, it is testimony to the Premier League. They know that it will affect footballers and football players when this sort of stuff happens. But when it comes to referee, they know that's just important. That mental health element is extremely important. And that says a lot for the Premier League in that respect. Because I can't imagine what he would be thinking. I can't imagine his first thought when that video first came out. He even says in the video, "Oh, this did not go anywhere," and even jokes about it ruining his career. So I do sometimes think, and why that video came out, if you think about it, like who was the reason? Remember that video was taken around kind of COVID, around coronavirus, for example, in I think a 2020, 2021 situation. So 2024, why is it need for it to come out? Is there a reason? Has someone got an agenda, for example? Is it potentially a Liverpool fan perhaps saw it and was like, I don't want David Coote near any Liverpool games in the future. I don't want that risk to be taken. And then I just felt like The Sun with the other video, I just felt like it. as a Premier League referee, as a human being in general, seeing essentially your career collide inside, like you can just feel it crumble with a punch after punch after punch of video allegations all coming out all at once. It almost just crumbled in on him. So I do appreciate that. Must be such a difficult thing mentally to go through as a referee, because then he's a human being, as you know, as much as he is a referee. But then you would argue at the same time that a referee of this level should not, irrespective of what the situation was, should not be doing videos like that, should really be upholding not only his contract, but the ethics and the code and the moral code of, you're a Premier League referee. A lot of players, for example, will abide by every rule. Like, yellow card, okay, cool, they'll listen. You're respected. As you, I would argue that he's probably the most respected person on that pitch at that particular time. So there is, there's that element of, we're all human, but at the end of the day, kind of like, for example, you work in the, NHS, for example, in the UK, or any kind of, you're a doctor or a GP, for example, you have an ethical code that you should really be abiding by. So, it's not good, obviously, for David in that respect.
Yeah, I agree. But hopefully he gets the help that he needs, and that the refereeing situations get better based on this situation, because it's always just a good constant reminder that, hey, you are a public individual, so the decisions that you are making in your personal life can influence the things that you do for your job and your public life as well. But now let's finish this bad boy off with our take it or leave it. I'll give you mine really quickly. It's about a pertinent topic that has just happened. So take this or leave it. Saudi Arabia hosting the World Cup is a good thing.
Good thing. Inverted commas, good thing. Now, it depends how you define good, right? You would argue that if you remove politics from a country in terms of decision, then technically going to a place in the Middle East to play football, fair, right? Like, everyone should get a chance. So it is a good thing for a country that perhaps isn't necessarily a footballing nation, that is trying to do something special here with Cristiano Ronaldo, with the Saudi Arabian League, for example, and they're trying to do something special here. If we argue and put politics into the play, you would argue that the USA isn't a good thing for them potentially to have the World Cup. If you're going to put politics into it for 1 second, right? But if you're going to put it in terms of, is it a good thing for the country? Will it increase, for example, tourism in the country? Will it increase what they're trying to do? What Saudi Arabia is trying to do in terms of revolutionizing the world of football with their own individual game, but also business and money. And, if we're not taking where they get the money from in terms of place value, then I would argue, yes, it is a good thing, because football, I'd argue, is a world sport. Everyone knows, and most people, the globe, the World Cup is the most watched. The final, anyway, is one of the most watched sporting events in the world. So with that being said, of course, it's a good thing to have it to a nation that isn't necessarily a big footballing nation. Yes, it's not not a Brazil, for example, or England, for example. It's or even a Germany. Yes, it is. But so is it a good thing? If you remove the politics out of it, then yes, I would argue it is a good thing. Have they bought it? Have they put money in different places? I'm not saying anything else. But it depends how you want to look at it. But I would argue, yes, it is a good thing.
I will leave this. I think it is not a good thing, because I cannot remove the politics of decisions like this from big sporting decisions. One, because we've all seen the corruption with FIFA and how the World Cup selection process happened, and all the drama of people trying to pay money to make the decisions to host the World Cup in certain areas. So that is one caveat. Two, the other political piece, which unfortunately is political but should not be, is the human rights violations. There should be a scorecard, which there's a rough scorecard that FIFA supposedly uses for selecting these things. And they actually give out grades. And apparently they gave perfect grades in every area except the human rights one, where it said it could go either way. You don't want that on your scorecard when you are looking at human rights violations. That should be one of the easy things that you as a nation should be able to do appropriately. And unfortunately, some of those countries in the Middle East don't have great records, like we saw with Qatar, with the human rights side of things. And I don't think hosting a World Cup in a country where the human rights violations could go either way is a good thing, especially because there's a lot of humans involved in getting a country ready for a World Cup. We saw it with Qatar, some of the negative things, to put lightly, that were happening in terms of construction and trying to get areas ready for the World Cup. So I'm nervous that something similar would happen with Saudi Arabia when construction happens for almost all of these World Cup venues, because the vast majority of them don't even exist yet. There is a city where a World Cup will be held that is nothing. They have to literally build a city to create the stadium where the World Cup matches will happen. So I am saying it's not a good thing because the infrastructure is not ready. They're going to have to rush to get certain things done. There's already evidence of human rights violations happening previously. So all of that combined is a no from me. I will say the one piece that you did mention, yes, soccer is a world sport, which I absolutely love. And every country should have the ability to hopefully or apply for or try to get ready to host a World Cup if it's ready and available to do so. So I think FIFA should have said, if it wasn't corrupt and all this crazy stuff doesn't happen inside of FIFA, they should have said, yo, we would love you to host this. Here is a roadmap that will allow you to host the World Cup. So if you can hit all of these road marks, then yes, you'll be able to host the World Cup. But if you're not able to do that, we'll have to keep pushing it down the line until you are ready. But nothing happens like that, as it should, because the world revolves around money. So I'm going to leave this one on the table.
Yeah, I think that is a really fair point about that roadmap. And if things were more done from like a solutions perspective in terms of looking at it like, look, this is the problem. Let's create a solution, give you some time to do it. And if it isn't necessarily you bid and then you make it, it's more like we're going to judge you and judge your infrastructure across a period of time, then you're 100%. We know that.
But that's what's supposed to happen. That's what's crazy. They are supposed to, FIFA is supposed to judge each bid that is submitted, which no one else bid because everyone knew that it was corrupt and Saudi Arabia was just going to get it anyway. But they are supposed to take that scorecard and then judge all these different categories to make sure that a country is doing it. But yeah, you're right. It's not even happening. Ridiculous. This
is the thing. And as well, so much as obviously we've seen the Netflix documentary about FIFA and the corruption in general. Like, if I'm honest with you, if you remove the whole bidding process, right? You could literally give it to any country that goes, hey, I've got a couple of billion. Do you mind if I just do the World Cup? Is that right? Cool. That's essentially what's going to happen, right? Like, and they'll throw in a couple of, like, I think the one in 2034 is Morocco, Spain, and I forgot the other countries, one more kind of like country like that, which is going to be hosting it. It's kind of like, look, we'll throw in another footballing one, a European footballing one to kind of balance it out to the element. So like I said, this is another element we could really break into, but it is definitely about perspective here. If you're looking to bring in, if you talk about human rights, then there's no argument, right? If you look at it that alone, then cool, that ends that. But if you look at it as like a overall element of like sport for the love of sport, then yeah, you're right. But the word good, I see what you did there. It's a tricky one. So mine is, and as I was talking, actually, I changed mine a little bit. So my initial one was going to be something around Manchester United, but I feel like we've talked about that. So I'm going to jump back into the referee for 1 second, right? And I just want to bring in, I think there's a question I was going to ask. So my take it or leave it is, right? Essentially the case of David Coote and the refereeing and the allegation, etc., that has now lessened, I would argue, the authority that the Premier League has. And there's almost, I would argue, I'm trying to word the question correctly, but what I'm trying to say is the allegations of the referee that have been made with David Coote, has that for you essentially put the Premier League in essentially a disrepute, and there are perhaps other referees that may be doing something similar? Does that make you double think about future games? I think I will leave that just because I'm always a bit wary of referees. Being a coach, I've always had an interesting relationship with referees, and I know even the best referees
subconsciously are influenced by other things because they're humans. All humans are. So that makes sense. So I do have this era of knowing that they will not make 100% accurate calls or decisions. So going into that, I understand that already. That's just how refereeing of sports works across the table. So that piece is fine with me. The element of will it impact the viability of referees or the standing of referees in the Premier League in general, I don't think it hurts the Premier League per se. I think maybe people and coaches and fans will maybe be more wary of the things that referees do in their personal lives that could influence the decisions that they make in games. Just knowing that as a manager already, so that doesn't impact me, but I think that will open up that conversation a little bit more. I think what ultimately should come from this is that we see that there is an individual who's potentially struggling with some things, and just in general, even if not struggling, he's just making the wrong decisions. So maybe there needs to be more education for referees at the highest level, or maybe start that education earlier so that those referees have the resources and the knowledge to handle certain situations like this that come up in the future. So for me, I think that would be the best result of all of this. And I don't think, again, I'm going to leave this because I don't think it sheds negatively on the Premier League. If anything, I think it just puts more negative emphasis on the refereeing education system and how it can certainly improve. So for me, that's really where the negativity or the negative branding aspect goes to. Not the Premier League, more so just the union of referees and the education system.
I think that's a good point about the education, for sure. I think there's definitely more that needs to be done for that, because as we kind of spoke about earlier, there is more to be done. There's not enough education in that space, and I think that will obviously grow with that, and that will obviously potentially may bring the referees closer to the Premier League, more close to the fans and more close to the players in terms of understanding, and then they would perhaps do understanding. So it's kind of a tit for tat, essentially. There'd be more understanding from both sides with that specifically. I was thinking more so, I mean, I am with you in terms of it's less so Premier League, but my angle potentially was now the Premier League title is going to get close, right? Well, let's be real. I mean, close as close as it can be. I mean, Liverpool are storming it at the moment. Let's be real, but which is not good for anyone's predictions. Let's just clarify that, right? But I almost felt like, does it not, will fans just go, oh, are other referees potentially, especially betting on the game? It's very easy to do. I'm going to give him a yellow card. If it was that easy, it's literally two messages between a referee going to his mate, put a bet on, I'm going to give him a yellow card. Just leave it with me. Like, it makes me think, and does that potentially do the Premier League a bit of injustice in terms of thinking, is there going to be other decisions like that? When we have another blatant decision, for example, like the Rodri handball, for example, and the Everton handball, for example, is there going to be more like, well, I don't know, maybe it's the Premier League, you remember that referee? I don't know, maybe, is there potential there? That was my large thinking, but I think it makes more sense from a negativity perspective.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think maybe fans will think about it more. If I was the Premier League and any type of organization that dealt with referees, I would start doing a branding campaign now of saying, hey, here's what we're doing to improve this situation. We know that there are issues happening within the referees, but this is now the new educational model. Here are the different things to think about. And I would make that more public so that people understand the actual education that referees go through and what is being done to improve it.
Love that. That there solves it. I think that would be, I don't know, how do we get that? But someone cut that, clip that, send that to the guys, because I think
hire me, boys. I'll fly over to the UK.
I think it's perfect. Honestly, I think it's so perfect, because that's what's needed. We need some more clarity, and more transparency is the key in the situation. Great. That, I think, brings an end to another cracker of a show. As always, mate, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. You got any final words before we close out?
If you are in the USA and you pay attention to MLS, which I'm not, as we know, not a huge MLS fan, but I like soccer in general. So congratulations to the LA Galaxy, not necessarily the ones that were selected to win the MLS Cup, but they did it. Exciting final. So Marco Ruiz getting a trophy. What a guy.
We love Marco Ruiz. Great work. Of course, if you do follow us on Instagram, give us a DM, give us a follow. And of course, if you're on a pitch, just make sure you don't get nutmegged. Enjoy, guys.
Peace.